If you haven't bought a home in a while, you've never bought a home, or you're just curious about home buying in Northern Michigan, this is the video for you. Hi, my name is Eric Seneff. I'm a real estate agent here in Traverse City, Michigan. I serve basically all of Northern Michigan. So before we get to step one in the process, I want to talk about step zero. Step zero is kind of like making the decision to buy. What does making the decision to buy look like? Well, have you saved up some money? Do you have any big debts that you've paid off? Are you kind of just have that gut feeling of like, I don't want to rent anymore, or it's time to leave our current house, it's time to upgrade. Finding your why is kind of the whole point of step zero, because once you found your why, then if you have any big financial scary stuff, you revert back to the why. And that why could be, hey, got another child on the way. I got a pup that really loves a big backyard, wants a big backyard. It'll kind of sustain you through those tough times and getting it right. So you've made the decision to buy, and now we're into step one. So step one to me is either talking to your financial planner about having the cash to buy, or talking to a loan officer that could make sure you have a rock solid mortgage for your situation. My big thing on this part is not waiting. Now, a lot of folks will say, I know I got a good credit score. I know I got the money in the bank. Like, I'll just wait to get my pre-qualification or talk with my financial advisor. But the least amount of surprises that you can have in this process, I think it's key. Step one is basically just getting your pre-approval, talking with a great lender, making sure there's no surprises in the shadows. Because again, they're in the home buying process, like there will be surprises. Don't get me wrong. We just don't want this to be one of them. Step two is deciding on what you want, and more importantly, why you want it. So personally, I think it's easy to find out what you kind of need or want. I need 3 bedrooms, 2 bathrooms. I need a backyard. I need a garage. That stuff isn't terribly difficult to figure out. But then sitting down in a quiet room and asking yourself why on each one. A common example I like to use is the bedroom. So if you need, I need 4 bedrooms. Well, why do you need 4 bedrooms? Is it because you're trying to sleep 4 people, or is it because you need, an office or a gym space or something like that? If that's the case, then heck, we should be looking for 3-bedroom houses and above, but then also be seeking out, let's say, a basement where an office could go. So I met with some clients one time, and we were having a great time drinking beers, talking about, everything they wanted to get in a house, all that fun stuff. And I told them, hey, when we're done here, grab a bottle of wine, go home, and write down all your needs and whys, and send it to me. And I kid you not, the next morning, they sent me a nice big Excel spreadsheet with all their needs from top to bottom, all their wants, and then why was in each little box on the Excel spreadsheet. And I kid you not, we found their house in the first weekend of shopping. I personally don't focus too much on the don't want list. It's pretty clear if you don't want to live on a certain side of town, we won't look there. But you should certainly still take a look at a house if it does show up on the side of town you don't really care about, because if it's a perfect house but it just isn't in the exact perfect place for you, there'll be a decision to be made. And if you have a partner, you should do this exercise in separate rooms and then come together. If you're like me and my fiance, I just said, whatever you want. So step 3, we have our list now. We have needs, wants, whys. So now it's time to start looking at houses together. Only really going to be looking at houses that we know kind of work. Obviously, you can tell a lot from photographs online, but actually getting there will there will be some surprises. I'm just going to say it. Whether it's the neighbor you didn't know had a junkyard in his backyard, or the other way around. I've had this happen where it's like, oh wow, it's on a dead end street. Oh wow, there's big trees we didn't see in the neighborhood. Going out and seeing the house, super important. So for the most part, you should probably try and tour homes right away. It may not be super convenient for your schedule, but if one comes up and it like meets most of the criteria you have set up, you should like go after work, even if you're tired, and go see it. Because in some markets, specifically northern Michigan, nice houses do go pretty quick. So the hardest part about actually touring homes is finding out, uh-oh, is this the one? Like, do we write the offer? My big thing on this has always been, if you don't get this home, will you feel eternal regret? And I don't mean to sound crazy, but that question is kind of backed up by the idea of like your gut. Because, you know, I've toured homes with people where we'll look at 7 or 8 homes, and the whole time it's like, am I making you mad? Like, did I do something wrong? Because they're just not excited about anything. And then we walk in the last house, and it's like their faces light up, and they're like, oh my God, imagine this, imagine having a party, you know. And then it's like, okay, now we know that that's the house. We're going to have to write an offer now. All right, so we found the house. We're ready to write the offer. Let me show you this worksheet I use to craft the perfect offer. So whenever I write an offer, I like to use this cheat sheet from our friends over at Ninja Selling. Basically, easy way to go through all of the major components of an offer and see how hot we can get them. I'll go on this one as if it was just like a normal listing. So for some folks, we'd say we'd go to list price. We are doing a conventional 20% down. The inspection, we want a full inspection. And then appraisal, I just leave this as an appraisal typically. I don't really mess with appraisals too much in northern Michigan. And then timing, a lot of this stuff actually gets into, you know, me, the agent, talking with the list agent and asking, what does the seller actually want from us? Because we could write this offer and they may not care that we have 20% down. They may be okay with FHA or USDA. They may be a little weird about a full inspection, so we might have to just inspect the major components like HVAC and things of that nature. But generally listening to what the seller wants is a great way to kind of steer the actual offer itself. Now, if we're here in multiple offer world, then yes, we got to still listen to the seller, but then we got to go over and above. So a good example is always the timing of everything. If the sellers want, let's say they want 30 days after close to, you know, move out or whatever, it's probably no sweat off your back as the buyer to give them 45 days. Kind of bumps you above all the other offers on the table. So anyways, that's how I typically like to write an offer. Get your components, get them as hot as you can. If it's a home that has been sitting for a long time, that is where you can kind of start to downgrade some of this stuff. I shouldn't say downgrade, but you know what I mean. Kind of get more of a win out of the offer instead of, you know, really getting the most juice with the seller. Okay, so now we've made it to the inspection period. And before you call your inspector, make sure you take a real solid look at this document. This is called a seller's disclosure, and seller's disclosures are on pretty much every house. If it's in a trust or, you know, nobody's ever lived in it, then I think legally they don't have to fill one of these out. But let's just assume there's one of these. These documents are cool because it'll tell you, like, yes, the dishwasher works, it's in good shape. I always like the second page because this is the one where it tells you, hey, the roof is good, the well, you know, was pumped in 21 or, you know, whatever it might be. So anyways, you go through this, you kind of get a really good idea of the house. Any any notes that the listing agent provided will probably be discussed as well. Like, oh, there's new flooring, new this, new that. So before you even call the inspector, you should have a relatively good idea of the condition of the home. And of course, your buyer's agent should be able to like tell you, hey, that furnace was super old, whatever. But anyways, you call your inspector, usually $500 or so, and then they'll come out and they'll turn on every faucet. They'll put the oven through all the heat cycles. They'll put water down all the drains to see if they're slow moving, whatever it might be. But anyways, all of that to say, you get this big 50 to 100-page report back, and then anything that you want to negotiate with the seller, you can. Caveat to that, you've got to take into account the emotions of the seller, I would say. Some sellers are really okay with, hey, it needs a new roof or whatever, let's work through it. Other sellers are, maybe they're selling because they don't want to, like somebody died, now they got to sell. So it's like, it's kind of touchy-feely a bit. But again, literally every single situation in real estate is different. So there's no way that I in one video can tell you like this is how it's going to go. This is how, it's all person to person. You could walk through the house and your brother who's been building houses for 20 years will tell you, hey, this house is great, whatever, and that's all you need to know. Regardless, always get an inspection if you can. Yeah. All right, so now you have your inspection report back, and now it's time to negotiate. So, multiple ways to negotiate. My big thing is like, how serious is the issue? If it's a surprise that the roof is bad and you need a new roof, and it's not in your budget, and the house isn't priced to reflect a bad roof, then you can kind of maybe put in a request to split the cost on a new roof. Obviously, that's always backed up by a professional roofer's opinion. Usually, I try and find multiple quotes for that kind of stuff for my buyers, just so it's like pretty clear. Like, hey, here's like a reasonable estimate on the cost to fix this. Some sellers will just tell you that they are not willing to do anything, and at which case you as the buyer have to go, okay, well, but what are we going to do? And there's usually a few things. It's, meet in the middle. Somebody pays half, the other one pays the other half. 2, you could reduce the price of the house. Or 3, sometimes I like to just get concessions back. So at closing, we'll get $2,000 back if there's a small list of things on the inspection report that needed help, instead of going through nitty gritty and calling every little every HVAC technician, the drywall guy. Instead of calling all these people, you maybe just settle for a flat fee or something. All right, we got through the inspection. Yay! That's the hardest part of any real estate deal, by the way. Now we have the appraisal if you're getting a loan, and then this can go 3 ways. First way is an appraisal waiver, which is, if 20 houses have sold in that neighborhood and yours is this, it's the same as all the other ones, then the appraiser might just say, cool, like we don't even need to appraise it. Like we know it's good. Kind of rare, but sometimes happens. The other one is that it either meets value or it's above it. So that means you got a good deal. More often than not, I find appraisers stop appraising once they reach the purchase price. Very few appraisers, if you got a house for $300,000, you might often get an appraisal back that says $300,000. Ones that go above and beyond might go a little higher if that house has more value. But anyways, those are both good. The last one, low appraisal, that is not good. That basically means like, the bank is only going to give you money on what they think it's worth, which is the appraisal. And then what you're under contract for is going to be higher. So, if you have a $10,000 gap, then you, the buyer, might have to make up that gap with $10,000, or the seller might have to lower their purchase, like the purchase price of the actual house, Those situations always suck. No way around it. But hopefully, because remember, you're 25, maybe 30 days into the process at this point. You probably just want to keep it together and figure it out. If you, the buyer, have a bunch of cash to offset it and you don't mind, then that might be great and you can still buy the house. But again, this is always a pretty rough situation when you have a low appraisal. But anyways, I don't know. In northern Michigan, I find a lot of houses usually just meet value. I don't know. But anyways, on to the next step. Okay, so now this is like the last steps really. It's like uh, do your final walkthrough. So you walk through the house the day before closing and you make sure they didn't blow apart a wall or something. Make sure everything's as you thought it would be. And then you go to closing, which is, you sit there for an hour and sign a bunch of paperwork. And then transfer of utilities sometimes happen on that day. If you have delayed possession, this is where things get interesting because you'll sign that you're the owner, and then the seller will have, if you give them 15, 20, 30, 40 days to be in the house, under Michigan law, you actually enter into a tenant-landlord relationship. And so 9 times out of 10, they're going to take care of the house. Like, they're not going to, be mean about it. Again, Northern Michigan, people are generally pretty trustworthy, but things could happen. So, yeah, you get through that, and then eventually you get the keys, and now you're a homeowner. So, hopefully this video helped. Hopefully it didn't add more confusion. I know that this is a pretty big process. Yeah, it's really kind of tough and will test you and your loved ones. But at the end of the day, you become a homeowner or you upgrade homes or, whatever. But the payoff, I think, is worth it every time. So anyways, Eric Seneff, Real Estate One Randolph. Thanks for watching.